G'day everybody, this is Andrew from Bespoke 3D Creations. That's a new business that I am starting up with, to do scanning, design services, 3D printing, 3D modeling, all those sorts of good things. And I'm going to be documenting a lot of my journey and the things that I get up to, including the work that I'm doing on my 1977 Triumph Stag Resto mod, which is the image you can see in the background. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to come, but before I go too much into all of that, at the end of 2025, towards the end, I purchased an Autolite scanner so that I could start scanning the engine bay and doing work in my Stag and ultimately for other parts, for reproductions and things like that. Now the Autolite was the top of my budget at about AU dollars or Australian dollars. It was around 1,000 Australian dollars. Anyway, that was the best I could afford and had the balance of quality and also transportability. I needed to be able to get around, use a mobile device and scan from wherever I ended up without needing to be tethered to a computer. And the reason I want that is because I want to be able to travel ultimately to clients and do scans for them. Anyway, as part of that, I had some great success and I joined 3D printed car parts and did some posts and got some good feedback. Anyway, towards just before Christmas, through the 3D printed car parts group, I was picked out as a winner for an Einstar Vega scanner, which in Australian dollars is about $3,000 to $3,500. So well above the budget that I had. But anyway, I won one. And so a massive thank you to Len, who founded 3D printed car parts, and the Einstar company itself for sending me the device. I got it just before the end of last year, start of the new year. And so I've had it for now a week and a half, and the opportunity to just try a few scans, do a few things with it, and also compare it to how the Autolite went, and see sort of how it stacks up. So what I want to do is, well, firstly, as I said, big thanks to Len, 3D printed car parts, and Einstar for the prize. It was phenomenal, well beyond my budget to afford. But I wanted to give my impressions for the first few things that I've done with it, and talk about some of the pros and cons. Down the track, I'll do some direct comparisons with the Autolite, and when I scan some parts in my Stag, we'll do a side-by-side comparison, see how they stack up. Both scanners, by the way, are excellent. I really like the Autolite and I'm really enjoying the Einstar Vega. So without further ado, I just want to run through my initial thoughts. So first up, positives, before I actually show you some examples. The all-in-one capability is fantastic. The scanning is pretty quick. The frame rates on it are good, and the tracking, generally speaking, has been really, really high quality, and anytime I've lost tracking, it's been able to pick it up again super quickly and effectively. So really, really impressed with that. The fact that the quality of the manufacture, the structure of it, it seems pretty good. It's a pretty heavy device, which is both good and bad. All the peripherals and things that have come with it have been great. The display on it is fantastic. In fact, I will show you the device I'm talking about. So this is the one I won. It is really good piece of kit. So I'll talk more about some of the positive things when I go through some of the examples in a second. Some of the negatives that I've experienced. Definitely, I feel you need a handle for this device. I've found on a few occasions when I'm leaning over an engine bay, trying to get behind things, and I'm holding the device with one hand, it is quite heavy. Over time, it begins to affect the wrists, but also my fingers. very easily get in front of the cameras with the standard device. You can see just holding it like this, fingers are very close to the cameras. So a couple of times I've had that happen. Also, I mean, at the moment here it's nearly 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It's about 37 degrees centigrade. So working can get a bit sweaty, and the grip, this rubber grip, is great for protection, but it gets a bit slippery. So again, I recommend, and this is something I'll be doing very soon, either buying or 3D printing a handle so that you can, get a bit more comfortable grip on the device. Not really much of a negative, but it's just a consideration. The other thing that I will say that is, it'd be nice if it was a bit better, is battery life. It's solid, 1.5 to 2 hours battery life in my experience so far. But if I was to travel to a wreckers, for example, and want to spend half a day to a day just at a place scanning a whole bunch of old parts to recreate or work with, or spend a whole day out at a mechanic's scanning, you're going to have to factor in the ability to charge the device a few times. So that's a little bit of a negative, but understandable considering the power that the actual device packs. I'm not going to go through all the specs on the device. There's plenty of that around. Check it out. But anyway, let's talk about and have a look at some of the actual scans. So I'm going to start with something I scanned. This is for a Jaguar part, and I'm going to start with this because this gave me massive headaches to scan. And I mean that with the auto light, it was awful. With the Einstar Vega, I struggled. Again, this is one of the first scans I was doing, so there are a few functions in the Vega that I've since sort of beginning to get my head around, which I didn't have at the time. So this may seem like not very much, bear with me. Here is the actual original part. This is a bit of lower footwell trim from a 2000s era Jaguar, XJ6 I think. That's been broken on one side and absolutely shattered on the other, and these parts are really hard to find. You basically can't get a reproduction part, so you can only get them second hand, and typically from England. They're really hard to get hold of. So my mechanic friend who's doing some of the work on my Stag asked he does a lot of old cars including Jags, and asked if I could help out and have a crack at scanning. Now for me, this is one of the first times I've actually tried to recreate a part as opposed to create a custom fitment or something like that. So one of the issues I've had with this is it's extremely thin and there are very few features. You can see on this side, if you take away the tracking stickers, there's basically nothing. It's just a bland surface with no features on it to track, and being so skinny, it's really challenging. So I tried scanning it with the aid of little markers on the bed or on the table. Really had a lot of difficulties. In the end, I went to use trackers, and even then was struggling a bit. And part of the reason I struggled was something that I discovered with the Einstar, which is in high detail mode, which is what I was trying to use. You need to be quite close to the object, probably closer than I was initially expecting. And to get 4 marker dots in view at any given time really did require quite a lot of the little dots on the device. Anyway, in the end, I got the best results by scanning using texture, feature, and markers, which is a great feature of the Vega, that you can have all 3 at once. And I got a pretty reasonable result. There are a few things around the edges which aren't awesome, but that's more, I believe, user error, and I was still working on the automatic removal of the table or the flat surface underneath. You can see not an enormous amount of detail in the scan, but then I was trying to do this pretty quickly, but overall the shape's there. You can see the grooves in the plastic down to this little section. Where is it? There it is. You can see this little pattern here is replicated pretty well. So it ended up being pretty functional for me. And I've had some good success with the replication. I'm doing a test fit. I've had to break it into two parts for the moment, just in PETG, just as I say, just test and make sure it fits okay. And it's, I've got the curvature really well. I put in some strengthening ribs on the back just to help. But I'm pretty happy with ultimately how that came out, and definitely ended up with better results than the Otter Light, but not drastically. So that got me thinking, and I was a bit honestly underwhelmed. I kind of envisaged that this would be a game-changing, massive change, and it just wasn't. So I decided to scan something a bit bigger, and I wanted to try the fast mode and also combine it with the high def mode, which is a good feature of the Vega, is the ability to combine different resolution scans into one, and it does a great job. And that's this. So note, I'm in the Einstar Vision software, which is, you can do a lot of post-processing and processing on the Vega device if you're out and about. Want to make sure you got everything, that's great. But for the heavy duty stuff, I downloaded onto the computer and used the software to do my processing. Anyway, I was blown away by this. So this is just a part of front peripherals on an LS1 engine. I just slapped it on the table outside, gave it a quick scan in the fast mode, and you can see this side is basically the result of the fast mode scanning. So dimensionally accurate. You can see where I haven't even captured it particularly well. It was just a test. That's what these green holes and things are. But you can see the circles, the holes, the shape is pretty good. This object, this big dome thing, was a shiny black object, so I just gave it a quick spray with and a very light spray with dry shampoo, which worked really well. The blobs and messiness is really just down to me not taking much time, because it wasn't the point of the scan. Anyway, I flipped over the object, did a quick scan, and then I did a high def scan. Again, I was careful without being really focused on what I was doing. And this is where I started to get really impressed by the ability of the Vega. It is really accurate. You can see as I zoom in, you can read the numbers, you can made in Canada, right down to all these sorts of things. Copyright here, the grooves, even the thread on the bolts coming through. There's a little bit of speckling. Some of that was actually because the object had a bit of a rough surface, and some of it just because it was shiny and I hadn't done any spray or anything like that. But this is really, really good. Faint details. Like you could genuinely use this as to build really accurate parts from, or to reproduce. I don't think for something really detailed that you'd want to use this scanner to print directly. I think you might miss some of the fine details, but for a lot of things, with a bit of post-processing, you could 3D print direct off a scan with this, which is pretty impressive. And again, this was done quickly. It aligned really fast. The tools were really handy, and I had really, really impressed with that. So, noting that I wanted to do a little bit of a review, I decided, as unfortunately my Stag is currently away having an new aftermarket air conditioner fitted in some my air filter, which I'll get to in another video. I grabbed my son's TX5 Turbo, Ford TX5 Turbo manual, and I maxed out the scan. Right, so the maximum of 8,000 frames is the amount you can capture in any given single scan, and I just basically kept going until it ran out. and I scanned the engine bay, and I picked the engine bay because there was black things, shiny things, dirty things, lots of features, some textures, and this was the result. So let's talk about this. As you can see, this is in the fast mode, by the way. There's no high def mode in this scan. So obviously you'd get a lot more detail with the high def mode, but if you're building a cold air intake and you want to pipe, run some, some tubing around, or if you want to, install something and put something aftermarket in, whatever it is, there is definitely enough detail in the scan to do that. One thing that I was a little disappointed with is the depth of the scan. It would be nice to, you can see the light's not penetrating very deeply into the engine bay, but you can also see that it is a very busy engine bay, so its surf detection is obviously picking up a lot of the top stuff. So it'd be nice if I could get in a little bit deeper, but then this is a all-in-one portable unit that's not really designed for doing that level of penetration. You need a real laser scanner for that. But this did not take me very long. That is really good detail, and I even captured the texture. Now it professes to have a 48 megapixel camera. I've got to say, as a former 3D game artist and environment artist and doing all those sorts of things, that's not bad. The results have come out pretty damn good. Really happy with how it's turned out, and sadly you can see the state of my son's car, but look, we had a battery failure. That's what those white lines are. But anyway, really impressive results. One thing I was pretty happy with also is I just did a little bit of the side panel. Obviously I didn't do any detailed scanning down the bottom section, but just focused a little bit along the top, and even just this ridge in the car, it picked up really nicely without any markers or anything like that. So I reckon this is, even in here you can see the bolts for the bonnet release mechanism. So it did struggle a bit with some of the black surfaces, but that's a known feature of these sorts of scanners. I do think my gut feeling at this point, and I haven't done a side-by-side comparison yet, is that the Autolite to date has handled dark surfaces better than the Einstar Vega, but in terms of resolution and detail and speed, it's definitely Einstar winning hands down. Light also has a better battery life, but that's because it's not processing everything on the one device. So there's pros and cons for both. For me, I don't see the Vega as a replacement for my Autolite. What I see is taking both to jobs and really using the strength of both. So the Autolite broader scans can do quite large surfaces and things effectively with minimal tracking or dots. It can handle dark surfaces pretty well, but you get lower resolution. I think the Einstar Vega would be the sort of thing where if I was looking to really get into the details and get an accurate scan of something to rebuild a part or to create something custom, I'd scan with that, but I'd also scan with the Autolite for bigger surfaces or more general stuff, noting again that sometimes I may not have a choice because the Autolite battery is going to last longer. But look, it's my impressions overall are that it's a fantastic device. Is it worth $3,000 to $3,500? In terms of what you're getting, yes. Do you want to have all-in-one computer processing and whatever else? It really depends what you're doing. I think if I was going on holiday and I wanted to have something with me that I could capture a bunch of scans with, I could carry around really easily, and I could capture all sorts of things with good texture resolution, and edit them on the fly. It is brilliant. If I want to go to junkyards or wreckers and scan odd parts or whatever, it's fantastic. If you had only wanted to do work in a workshop, then you'd be better. This is not the right scanner for you. You'd want to go something that plugs directly into a laptop, like some of the other Einstar products or Creality products. But for me, where portability is something I really want, then I got to say, hands down, the Einstar Vega is worth the money if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, I'd go another light, which is exactly what I did, and I've had good experiences with both. But hands down, really thrilled with the resolution of this device. It's easy to use. I'm definitely going to be printing a handle. The case it comes in is good quality and includes a handy strap with the attachment I'll need to be able to attach a handle with. I really can't wait to show some of the other videos I've got coming up and the work I'm doing with the Triumph Stag, where I've done a full LS1 conversion. I've got a custom cold air intake, moved the battery to the boot. We've got custom exhaust, ceramic coated headers, all the rest of that sort of stuff. And I'm going to do some side-by-side comparisons, as I said, with the Autolite to the Vega, and going to be documenting the journey. But once again, thanks to the 3D scanning group, thanks to Len, thanks to Einstar. This is fantastic, and look, like my video, give me some comments. If there's anything you would like me to scan to have a crack at with the Einstar and the Otto, if there's any other comparisons you'd like to do, let me know. Subscribe if you can, and I hope this review has helped you understand the pros and cons of the Einstar Vega and where it might fit in your toolbox. Anyway, thank you very much.